Hi, I'm Morgan Day, and I'm a fan of Glentoran FC in East Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Hi Morgan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so glad to be speaking to you. Your story is one of the sweetest and I think it's just pure serendipity. That's what I'd call it. It's just pure serendipity. So, without taking too much away from it, I'd like you to tell us how and why Glentoran FC.
About a year ago, it was April 23rd of 2020. Somehow I became the Queen of East Belfast, and that was the team there is Glentoran. And so I'll tell you a little bit about how I became their queen. I it was on that day, April 23rd. They designate that as Morgan Day
Right.
in East Belfast. And I had no idea. As an American, I do not follow football or soccer in Northern Ireland or any other region. And so on that day, I started getting all these tweets sent to me, and people were tagging me on Twitter and wishing me a happy Morgan Day, which is my name. And I couldn't figure out what was happening. The first four, they referenced soccer. I could make out that there was a soccer field. Um, there were soccer players on that soccer field. Something big happened, and that big thing that happened was 15 years ago. I got that much out of it,
Right.
and it was a big deal. And there was something to do with a chicken emoji, and the color green, and that's all I knew. And so I rounded up these tweets and I tweeted them back out and said, apparently something happened 15 years ago involving my name, hashtag Morgan Day, and perhaps a chicken. And I don't know exactly what it is, but now these internet strangers think that I'm their queen. Whatever it is, I'm all for it. Go team. And it just blew up. It found the right people in Northern Ireland who loved this soccer team, Glentoran, and they started educating me about, oh, this is why we're talking to you today, because we have this designated day every year where Chris Morgan, who used to play for the rival team Linfield, he was now on the Glentoran team 15 years ago and tapped in the game-winning goal against Linfield. And so all of these factors just came together to create this, huge moment for this football club. And so they celebrate it every year. And it just so happens last year, they decided that it was funny that I have the handle Morgan Day on Twitter. And so that's how they found me. And we just rolled with it. And it was really funny because they just educated me about what the day was. And this is why the heck we're talking to you in the first place. But like I told you, I did not understand at first. I had no clue what was going on.
That's so amazing. I keep telling people that when I talk to people about, the club, you don't find the club finds you. In your
Yeah,
case, it was literally true.
they found me all right. Yeah,
Yeah,
lots of them. They all found me.
but what was
But that
amazing, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that that day was extra special because, I wanted to talk to you about the gentleman, Alan White, who
Yeah,
lives here around Oklahoma City. He is from East Belfast, and he moved here several years ago when he was in college to play sports here and never left. And so he's had this love for Glentoran this entire time. And he also is a Twitter user. And so his friends in East Belfast heard people in the grocery store in line talking about this Morgan Day in Oklahoma City. And they knew Alan lived in Oklahoma City. So they texted him and they said, do you know anything about this Morgan Day
wow.
stuff that's going on in your neighborhood? And he goes, no. But he looked into it and he was like, wow, I don't know her, but this is happening right here. And this is my hometown from long ago and my hometown now. And so it created this really cool connection for him. So he DM'd me on Twitter and said, if it's not too weird, I'd like to give you this Glentoran top, this Glentoran scarf, and a book about the Oval, which is their stadium, which has a really storied history to it. And I thought, I'm not usually the kind of person to give my home address to an internet stranger, but Alan seemed very legit, very safe. And so, this is in the height of the pandemic, and he came over to my home. He set everything on the ground outside, and we had, masks and everything. And he stepped away from it. And then I came up and grabbed everything. And I got my top on, my scarf, and I held up the book. And we did some really cool social media stuff where I addressed the people in East Belfast and addressed my new family, this whole crowd that embraced me. So that was a really special part of it too, was meeting him.
Yeah.
And, we follow each other on Twitter and Instagram. And I actually got a beer with him the other day. We had been waiting a whole year for things to finally, get better during this pandemic and be safe enough for us to sit down and actually have a face-to-face conversation with each other. So we did that a couple of weeks ago at one of the local bars around here and just had a blast. And so he's like actually somebody I would hang out with in real life. Like he is a legitimate friend now.
That's brilliant. That's so cool, man. And that's why I loved your story, because you really got into it. In fact, I think you replied to everyone who tweeted.
So I think part of that comes down to I work in this field of digital marketing and social media, and it is I hate to not acknowledge people when they are trying to engage with you. And I've always been very, very big on that, whether it's me personally or it's a brand that I'm, working behind the scenes on. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth where you see somebody reaching out to somebody else online and they get nothing in return. So it's just not the way I operate. And so I believe everybody, these are real people trying to talk to you. And so I just kind of took my personal mantra of like, everybody's important, and ran with it. And I think you're right. I think I was able to at least like or respond to everybody. And that's probably why, a little bit why it blew up as much of it as it did, because that engagement leads to more engagement. And it really wasn't my intent to have it blow up. But I was having fun with it at the same time. I didn't want it to stop. I was having so much fun. And I remember I reached out to my boss because this was during the workday for me. It was probably like nighttime for people in East Belfast. But this was during my workday when I should have been at my computer in my home doing all of my client work. And so I called my boss and I said, "Hey, Greg, something's happening online." And he goes, "Oh, I know. I see it," because he's like very in tune to what I'm doing on Twitter. He's probably one of my biggest Twitter fans, actually. And so I said, "There's something happening." He goes, "Oh, I know." And I said, "Do you mind if I just take a little bit to have fun with this?" And he goes, "Anything you need, do it. This is so funny. Don't worry about anything else. Just talk to these people. They're loving it. You're loving it. Lean into it." And so I got my boss's approval and we just ran with it.
That's so cool.
Cool boss.
Yeah, cool boss. And what did your family and friends think about it?
They thought it was hilarious. They said it couldn't have happened to a funnier person. And so some people say that it couldn't have happened to a funnier person, and others say, well, of course that would have happened to you. I never know how to take that. Like, why me? Why is it so obvious that this would have happened to me? That part I don't understand. But when they say, couldn't have happened to a funnier person, what they mean is I don't follow sports. Okay. And, when I go to a soccer game, I see the people on the field. I get the general premise of the ball goes this way and that way, but I don't actually know what's happening. And so here you have this kind of ignorant American who got dragged into this big internet thing, and she has no clue what's going on. And so to me, that's part of the funniest part of it, because I don't know how it would have gone if I was like a soccer or football expert. I'm not sure it would have been as entertaining as it was.
No, but you were so open to it. I saw the tweets and the thread. You were so open and willing to engage with people, and I think they really warmed up to that. To be able to share those stories with you.
Yeah, and part of it is just like my personality online. I used to tweet like when I was younger, I used to be on Twitter all the time, and I'd probably tweet 10 times a day, everything that I was doing, like a play by play of my day. And that's not really what I do anymore. I check in with it, but I might tweet once every couple weeks or once every few weeks. But I engage and I talk to people and I like things. But it, yeah, it is. It's a little bit different for me now. So for that to happen, it kind of got me like re-engaged in this platform that I don't pay as much attention to anymore, but I love it. Twitter is one of my favorite places to be.
When I said earlier that you really got into it, you got into it so deep that come December, you had a really special address.
Yes, so they do a Queen's speech there every year, and so what they had me do was deliver a Queen's speech because they listen in East Belfast. They get a Queen's, like the literal Queen's speech every Christmas, and so I wish I could take credit for writing all those clever, brilliant things that were in there. And, I had some great historic stuff that was a little over my head. And I think everybody knew too. This girl does not know the history of all this. It was provided to me, and we did a couple practice runs. I did that with Alan, actually. And a couple things I had to ask him, what does this mean? Is this correct? So there were several things like I was trying to fact check myself to make sure I wasn't saying anything that I shouldn't be saying. And he really, he helped me with that. Like I had no idea what the word Motherwell meant. Maybe that's really obvious for some people, even Americans, but that's not a word I hear every day. So I had to be like, Alan, tell me what Motherwell is. The Motherwell, like what is it? Yeah, there were lots of instances like that had to be explained to me, but it was a lot of fun. And it was another instance where everyone was like, oh, here she is again. Like I don't think they expected to hear from me that day, but there popped up in their Twitter feed with, more Queen stuff.
It was brilliant. It was really well written. And you did such a good job of it as well.
Well, thank you.
Football fans, stuff like this, we just lap it up, man. And I see how they have really adopted you now. Once they've adopted you, they're not going to let you go easily.
Yeah, that's what they tell me. They say, I was like, oh, I probably said something like, oh, this is fun for now. And they're like, for now, this is forever. What are you talking about? And, lots of people saying once we know about you, like you're not out of this. This is a lifetime commitment that you are now in. And they were right. I think somebody tweeted at me 8 weeks before this past Morgan Day, and they said 8 weeks out. And I tweeted back at them, are we really starting this countdown 8 weeks from now? And sure enough, they did. They started the countdown 8 weeks out.
Brilliant. You did anything special for this year?
I wore it was a work day again. So I wore my scarf around the office and nobody even asked me about it, but I committed in that way to at least wear the scarf around. And I got some funny looks, but nobody thought to ask me what was going on. Maybe they thought that it was just part of my regular everyday office attire. Who knows? But yeah, that that was it. And then the day before, Alan and I, that's when we went out for a beer to celebrate. So it wasn't on Morgan Day, but it was close.
I saw that little video that you made, and he's been dubbed the Hand of the Queen.
Yes, the Hand of the Queen. Yeah. So far, I don't know anybody else from East Belfast who lives here. It's for me, it's just Alan.
So your local football club also got into it.
Yes. Yeah. So somebody had tweeted at me in 2020 on Morgan Day. They said, "Oh, this is great what's happening with Glentoran, but please don't forget about your local football club." And so I tweeted back at them a selfie where I'm holding up my Energy FC kit that I had got a few years ago. And every time I go to a game, I wear this one, even though it's years past, I still wear the same kit every time I go to the games. And so I held that up, took a selfie, and then tweeted it back at this person. And then that blew up. And the energy started roping me into things. And I love this tweet that they had where they showed the picture of me in my Glentoran top and my scarf, and then the picture of me with my energy kit. And they made like a virtual handshake. They said, "Glentoran, meet us. We're now friends for life. These two football clubs are now friends for life." And I don't know if it's like an official designation, but they said basically like this is our sister club in East Belfast. So it's somewhat legitimate, this connection that they made. I don't know if they've gotten any like signatures on paper to finalize that, but I think they consider themselves sister clubs now.
It's so cool. It's so brilliant that you and Alan are now, I mean, y'all are ambassadors, really, of these clubs.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, it's serendipity. It's amazing. I'm hoping that you can tell me a little bit more about Alan.
Yeah, he's wonderful. Like I said, I waited an entire year to actually sit down and have a beer with him, which was 364 days too long. But he's really a good supporter of his community. And I remember when everything started happening on the first Morgan Day I was involved in, somebody was like, "Oh, how could you give your address to a stranger on the internet?" And I said, "Oh, I thought about that. I'm a young woman. Well, I typically would not do that." But I said, if you went to Alan's Twitter page, you could see that he is advocating for positive things here. I think I had referenced the fact that he had ordered shirts from the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum because they had a really big year during the pandemic. Actually, they made national news, and so they really leaned into the publicity and the merchandising. And so he and his wife Jennifer, they had pictures of themselves holding up their Cowboy Museum T-shirts, and I saw that, and I thought this cannot be a bad person to support your community in that way. I mean, all it took was a museum T-shirt, and I was like, heck yeah, we're all right here. But he's just super down to earth and funny. Like I said, he is somebody I can actually be friends with in real life. You're not always compatible with everybody, but I think Alan and I, we really do get along. Outside of him being a big part of the community with Glentoran, he's building communities around lots of things. Like he's involved in cycling groups. And so one of his big things, I follow him on Instagram, and it's just a whole bunch of photos of like, a Monday night ride where he got together with dozens of people, and they end up at the same spot, and they're all having fun and having a beer and talking about why cycling is important to them. And
so cool.
It's really special to see. And I remember the other day, his wife and I are friends now too. She commented on one of my posts, and I was out hiking, and she said, "If you love hiking, you should try biking." And she invited me on one of her women's group rides, and so I think Alan's wife and I will probably end up going on some bike rides together too.
Amazing. And that's really what the stories like this about friendship and community, and especially at a time like this, where everyone's going through so much.
Yes.
It's really, really heartwarming, this story. And I really thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, we're still having fun with it.
Have you learned a little more about the history of the club?
Just the tidbits that have been tweeted at me. What I find really interesting actually is the history of their stadium. They said, it had been bombed during World War II, I believe.
Okay.
And it's the area where they make ships. And so they tell me that that is also where they built the Titanic.
Oh.
And so, so I have that book about the Oval, their stadium,
Right.
and I haven't read it cover to cover yet, but I intend to, and I think I'm going to get a lot out of that whenever I do dive into it.
It's now on your bucket list, the Oval.
Yep, they always ask, when are you coming over here? And during the pandemic, of course, it's like who the heck knows. But things are getting better in the U.S. and there's light at the end of the tunnel. People are traveling for leisure now. There are safe ways to do it, and so I think it's just a matter of having the resources, having the time, figuring out when is the best time to do that. But I've got Northern Ireland on the bucket list along with Germany, and I might pair those two together at the same time when I go.
And catch a game?
Obviously.
ABHT, always be hating Tulsa.
Oh, yeah, I guess we have a very big rivalry between our local soccer team here, the Energy Football Club, and then Tulsa's team. Tulsa's, about an hour and a half east of us. Okay. And our, state rep, Forrest Bennett, he's a very, very big soccer fan. And so he looped me into this video last year where basically we're just ripping on Tulsa left and right. I really had no dog in the fight, but obviously I'm somebody to say, yeah, I'll go along with that. So I went along with that too. And he explained that, Tulsa was very jealous of the fact that we had organically made this whole Morgan Day thing happen, and we got the Energy FC involved, and it was a big deal here, and how fun and how cool. And he said Tulsa was just so envious of that they couldn't have something that happened organically, although they tried and they failed. It flopped. And so he had me help him with a video where we just roasted them. I'm always kind of hesitant to do stuff like that because like I said, I don't have a dog in the fight. And so when people come for me, I'm like, hey man, I don't know. I just went along with it. And that happened on the first Morgan Day too, where people, the haters came out, and they, the people who were really into Linfield. So the Linfield supporters were like, why do you have to get this stupid American involved? This is so lame. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm just having fun, y'all. This is not that deep. This is not that big of a thing. And some of them, there's not like a language barrier, but I don't know all the phrases that they use in Ireland and Northern Ireland. And so they would say something and I couldn't tell if they were making fun of me or if they were encouraging me. And so I'd have to ask somebody, am I getting roasted here? Or are they like, yay, this is good? I could never tell because I just like some of the phrases I had no idea. But I did learn like a good crack or good crake. That means you're doing a good job. You're being a good sport. So that brilliant. I can't pronounce it, but I know that one.
Stories like yours where people just open their arms and welcome you. And, it's so amazing that this has happened. And really, I'm hoping that you get to go there soon and will send me pictures of the Oval.
Yeah, it reminds me on Twitter, I had told somebody like this was the sweetest, nicest fan base I could have tapped into. And so some of the Glentoran folks were like, is she talking about us? They were being funny, but, football fans can get kind of, boisterous, rowdy. And they were like, she means us, right? Yes, I mean you.
I know your journey has not been as long as maybe some others, but what has it brought to you? What has it meant to you in your life?
What it means to me, wow. I think I have to go back to, paying attention to people. That's the biggest thing for me. This never would have happened if, this gentleman, his name is Matt C. He was the first person who tweeted at me, and he wished me a happy Morgan Day, and that's literally all he said. And I could have ignored him, but I didn't. And I responded to him and I said, "Thanks, stranger." And I think that engagement got more views. And so somebody else tweeted at me, and it snowballed from there. And it never would have happened if I didn't take the time for people. And so that's what sticks with me, is like, that's my mantra. That's what I want to live by, whether it's on social media or if it's somebody, trying to talk to you in real life. Everybody deserves the time. Everybody deserves the attention. And so that's one thing that, it's the way I lived anyway, but it is reinforced after this, I would say.
Morgan, thanks for coming on Faraway Fan and telling us this unique and wonderful story of yours.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope, like I said, I hope you get out there soon and send us some pictures.
I will. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Morgan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Do leave us a review. And you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at FarawayFanPod. That's FarawayFanPod. Thanks again.